everyone, this is Accelerate Games, and I am back with something a little bit different. This is my good, bad, and ugly review series. And so if you're new to my channel, or even if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I specialize in Telltale choice-based games, and I do usually do a good, bad, and ugly series. And so because I do so many different types of playthrough and so many little I guess derivative from the main Let's Play, I kind of wanted to create a summary or review video of my thoughts, my ideas, and to kind of give you a little bit a better understanding of the mythology behind why I do the good, bad, and ugly series and why I love it so much. And so I'm going to do one for episode 1 for The Walking Dead season 3 as well as episode 2 and kind of go over my thoughts, you know, how I think the characters are, the story's developing, and there's a lot of things to cover. So, you know, with that, I'm going to definitely hop right in. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and let's get started. Now, one of the first things I want to go over is how Telltale, you know, did a pretty good job in terms of wrapping up the end of season 2. And no matter what choice you made, it all ended with Clementine ended up alone. You know, whether you chose to stick with Kenny, which if you've already seen, you know, it resulted in his death if you stuck with Kenny, or if you stuck with Jane, it resulted in her death by her committing suicide, or if you went to Wellington, which resulted in Wellington getting raided and attacked, and she had to flee with AJ. And then, of course, if you choose to be alone, or you know, with AJ, it resulted in you losing your finger. So there's 4 different options in terms of how it could have ended. All, you know, very independent on your choices in end of season 2. But in essence, they ushered all your choices into those 4 categories. Now, in my bad choice playthrough, I chose to go with Jane, which resulted in her suicide. In my good choice category, I chose to stay at Wellington. I didn't actually go with Kenny. So those are my 2 choices. I haven't done the ugly choice yet, so you haven't seen that. But for my third ugly choice, I'm probably going to choose either going with Kenny or being alone. I haven't made up my mind yet, so I'll publish that once I get done. But in that sense, what it does is it really results in a cosmetic change for Clementine. I was calling her Clementine because I was thinking of Wellington, but Clementine. So of course, depending on what your option is, you get some kind of residual scar, whether it's a scar to your forehead, scar to your cheek, lose a finger, or whatever it may be. So it kind of just results in Clementine looking a little bit different. And I actually kind of like that they gave Clementine a little bit different characteristic a physical characteristics based on your choices. So it's like the physical manifestation of your previous season choices is going to reflect how she looks a little bit, or give her like identifying scar, kind of like Harry Potter. For your current season, which is a good way to kind of show some kind of lasting effect or residual effect of your choices in a previous season. And I like that idea. I mean, they're definitely thinking about adding more layers to your choices beyond, of course, the immediate consequences. And that's really a good thing to show that, you know what, hey, I'm playing with Clementine that lost her finger, or I'm playing with Clementine that has this, you know, the scratch on her forehead, you know, Harry Potter. So, you know, that's kind of a good way to start things off. I mean, in terms of how it affects Clementine, overall, it doesn't really change like her demeanor, because the choices are still going to be the same for season 3 in terms of what you could choose for dialogue conversation. But in terms of her physical appearance, it definitely helps to differentiate your choices and how it's reflective in her physical, physical change. From there, we hop into the new character, and they did a very smart thing, I think, in season 3 in not making Clementine the main character. And here's why I say that: because Clementine, you know, she's been through so much, and it, you know, for the most part, yes, we're gonna see her journey evolve, and for the most part, you know, who's to say that, you know, she won't eventually be the main character in season 3 by the end of it? Because I, for one, feel like, you know, Javier is either gonna go one of 2 ways. Either he's gonna die to end this entire season arc, or he and Clementine are gonna survive, and they're gonna move on to season 4 together. But we're gonna have to wait and see. So let's touch base on how Javier started out. Javier started out where he was playing in a baseball, I believe it was either minor or major league, I can't remember what, and he got disqualified for betting on himself. As a result, you know, he returned home to his dying father, and his brother David, of course, being angry at him for not getting there in time. So the episode starts out, you know, with Javier, not Clementine, showing his story, his backstory, what happened, and then it fast forward to the future, you know, after the the zombie apocalypse has been active for at least 4 years, give or take. And, you know, Javier is with his brother David, wife, as well as his brother's kid, his niece and nephew. So he's taking care of them, and he's also hooking up with his brother's wife, because he thinks his brother is dead. or at least appears his brother is dead in episode 1. I don't want to get too far ahead in terms of episode 2 yet, but I'll save that for later. So that's where you pick up with Javier, him protecting them. And long story short, he runs into the New Frontier, which the New Frontier, they're the main bad guy. I don't want to get, go too much into episode 2 if you haven't already seen episode 2. But the New Frontier, they're the main bad guys in this season. And Javier runs into them because he's trying to take their stuff. Now, it's interesting in your choices for Javier because you can, of course, do the good, the bad choices, and it kind of reflects and shapes his relationship a little bit in terms of the response from characters, things like that, even from Clementine. And I think that's going to be pretty important because Telltale is really pushing this season to make choices critical for you, even more so than previous season. And I'm wondering if there's going to be an option where Clementine ends up killing Javier. I'm throwing it out there because you never know. They're really trying to reinvent the series with season 3, so they're testing out new areas, probably testing out new choice categories, and maybe even making Javier the main character. You might have a situation where Clementine might have to sacrifice Javier for to survive for the next episode, or vice versa. I was thinking of Asher and Roderick Forrester from Telltale's series, Game of Thrones, where that did happen, where Roderick and Asher were the main characters, and it came to a boiling point in episode 4 where you had to choose which one lived and which one died. And that was one of the toughest decisions you have to make, I think, so far in Telltale. I mean, that's definitely tough because whoever you choose goes on to be the main person for the next. So I'm gonna go over the different choices I made for my good bad series. So for my good choices, I chose to head back on the road when the family was asking Javier to spend the night at a cabin. I chose to let the driver go. I also chose to be locked up because I didn't want to betray Clementine, as well as I chose to go with Trip to the junkyard instead of the other lady, which I'll get to in a second. And for the last one, I chose to escape with my family. So those are my good choice playthrough. For my bad choice, I chose to stay the night in a junkyard. I chose to shoot the driver. I chose to betray Clementine, which allowed me to roam free, which only 5% of players actually chose that one. So that was pretty interesting. I also chose to go with Eleanor, the nurse, instead of Trip to the junkyard to help rescue my family. And then I also chose to stay with Clementine instead of accompanying my family to safety for the last choice. Now, what I find interesting about these different choices is that for most of them, of course, it does affect your family and their responses. But I also think that Telltale is going to work on trying to make these choices affect or unlock unique conversational or dialogue responses from characters in the future based on how it affects them. So that's pretty important to keep in mind in terms of how you can possibly unlock unique dialogue choices, because in the past, some response is going to be a lot after you've been a douche or if you've been particularly mean to a person, and it's going to be interesting to see if it carries you on from episode to episode. So now that I went through the different choice options and what would happen, obviously it seems like they're trying to make it so that Javier chooses between his family or Clementine. When you choose your family, that seems to be the more, I guess, altruistic, the better choice versus Clementine. And I think at the end of episode 1 where you had to choose between staying with your family and Clementine was kind of symbolic of what this season might represent, in that people are going to be forced to choose between siding with Clementine or siding with your family for Javier, and that's going to be the dividing factor in terms of how his character developed throughout the season. I could be wrong, but it's just my theory right now based on how Clementine is the secondary character, but her choices seem to be a bit more ruthless than Javier, and it's because, of course, we all know Clementine's backstory and how she, began from the innocent little girl to becoming more, hardened after season 2 to now being the badass that she is. She's probably hands down the most badass character in season 3 so far. Exception being Trip, who could give her a run for his money, and Trip is pretty badass too. And I like his response, yeah, whatever, big nuts. And so it's pretty funny to kind of hear a character like Trip in the season, and I'm hoping that Trip does make it to the end of season 5, but you never know. So with season 1, episode 1, pretty much done. At the biggest, of course, reveal being that Clementine killed a person. Actually, she's killed some people before in the past because, she choose to kill Kenny or Jane. But in terms of the way she killed it was accidental. but you could tell that she had no remorse lying to cover up the fact that she did kill somebody, which shows just how much her character has developed since season 2, where she had a hard time killing another human being to where now she killed a human by accident and she lied about it. So that kind of gives you a little bit of insight into how, or her psyche, into who she is now. She's not the same Clementine we all know, and as we begin to see more of her, we start to peel at an onion to see just what her character is now after, I believe is it 2 years, or I can't remember exactly the time skip between season 1 and season 3, but it's definitely quite some time between it. Either way, we're going to see more of Clementine and kind of how her character develops after episode 1. I didn't want to touch base on some of the side characters because, you know, at the end of the day, this is a Walking Dead game. So the main character is not really going to die. It's more so the main character's journey as they either try to save their friends or lose their friends. And how they develop from that. That's really what Walking Dead boils down to. So with Javier being the main character, Clementine being a secondary character, I'm curious to see how those two evolve. Ideally, Javier is going to be the one that is probably going to go through the most tragedy this series, because he started off with the most to lose. He had his brother's, wife, his nephew and niece. His niece died at the end of episode 1. So that's going to be kind of curious to see where he goes from that. Let me know what your thoughts are on what episode 1 was like and whether you liked how it started. I think it was a solid start. Definitely really made me feel very sympathetic for Javier and what he might have to go through in order to survive, a season of Walking Dead. And he's not going to be the same Javier at the beginning of episode 1 as he will be at the end of episode 5. All right. Well, thank you guys for definitely listening to my Good, Bad, Ugly review. Overall, I give episode 1 for Walking Dead season 3 probably like an 8.5 out of 10, maybe even a 9, I would say, because it was really that good. So definitely, if you haven't already picked up the series, definitely check it out. If you're a fan of the series already, you're probably more likely to play to season 3. You've been waiting for it. So either way, I am curious to see where the other episodes go. I will do a review for episode 2 next to kind of go through that. But let me know what you think of my Good, Bad, Ugly review, and I will see you guys in the next episode.